I've been asked to repeat questions for, I think, the mic.
Sure.
So the question is how you selected participants in the Giving Project and how you also got involved. Yes.
Well, I want to give just even a little bit bigger context too, because as far as this idea, one of the things that we should be talking about here too is talking about risk. And we heard a little bit about that from the first panelist. And so when I brought this idea to my board, they were like, well, first of all, who is going to sign up for this? We have, you know what I mean? Sign up to give their time, give their money, ask other people for money. 6 months, we have about 250 hours in 6 month commitment. And so we put it out there, and the good news is we actually have about our cohort's about 25 to 30 people. We have about 60 to 70 people apply. So we've now created a rigorous process that hones down to see if people are really ready to have their world rocked and to do a lot of work. So it's an interview process, and then they meet with a past participant to talk about, go through their sort of fears, excitements, and then they meet with us staff to get a little reality check. Yeah.
So, oh, is my mic on?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Should I? Okay, okay. So with the fundraising process, should it be higher?
No, it's just good. Just kind of talking.
Okay. So with the fundraising process, the guidelines were that we were required to fundraise from our network, so that could be our family, our friends, our fellow coworkers. And I think the point of that was to think of the grant making process and the fundraising process as cohesive. So it's about digging into the resources that's in our community to reinvest in the community, to see our donors as community members as working towards a goal that we all share. So if it was someone that I didn't know, it wouldn't really speak to the mission of the Giving Project and the idea that those who are most affected should be the ones who identifying the solutions, but also financing those solutions.
Just so a little more context for this, because I think it's really important, is that we ask all the participants to make a meaningful gift. And what we realized is that people make a meaningful gift. It ranged in this cohort from $15,000 to, I think, $200, depending on. But the reality is most people live in networks that are very similar to yours. So we ask people to go 10 deep in their network and to have conversations. And this isn't fundraising to beg people for money. This is actually invite people into your vision. Because one of the things I realized, the difference between giving and a philanthropist, people give because you've been asked to give. Philanthropists invest because they believe. And getting people to understand and having Kalia talk about what she believes in, about why society should be transformed. And the interesting thing is, here's the interesting piece, is they were doing the fundraising, and they do their fundraising without knowing who the groups are. Mm-hmm. We're still in that parallel process. So they're just like, somewhere down the line, we're going to have some groups.
Yes.
I'm curious, what is your opening sentence to people when you want to start the conversation? What do you say? Do you have a plan thing or?
About the project she's working on?
Or raising money?
Oh.
Why don't you fundraise for me right here?
What do you say?
Wow, it's been a while since I raised money. What is my opening statement? Well, usually I start with small talk because it's someone I know and we're just catching up. I guess I start by saying that, I joined this really amazing project called the Giving Project, and we're working together to fund organizations that will eliminate racial disparities in our community. And I feel that it's our responsibility to eliminate those disparities. And I guess sorry, I'm a bit rusty, so I'm thinking. But I think depending on the person, I talk about the hardships that we went through. So usually, if like the folks that I identify on my list were people who we'd grown up poor, or they had faced some discrimination in their life. And so just seeing that your individual experience is something that's experienced by the entire community, and we're tired of waiting. And in order to, expedite change, we have to invest in it. Yeah, I guess that's sort of how I approach it.
Can you stand up?
You used the term when you first started speaking, democratizing philanthropy, and I was just curious why you chose those words, because it sounds to me more like socializing philanthropy.
Well, part of the,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great question. Oh, sorry, you want to repeat it?
Sorry, democratizing versus socializing philanthropy, how you choose to call it that, yeah.
Well, it's an emerging sort of piece. One of the things that we wanted to do was to get more people participating in it, was the biggest thing. And part of it's a selfish thing, I'll be completely honest. One of the things that I recognize, and I'm sure all nonprofits do, is that the people that invest in my organization, I'm accountable to in a very different way. And if, in fact, we can raise the numbers and the people of color and low-income folks that actually, we want to kind of be the people's foundation. So that's one sort of piece of it. It's pure selfish. I want to be accountable to more people than a few individuals that are wealthy. That's one. The other thing is, from a business model, what happens, and you'll see this more and more, the trends have been actually going in the wrong direction in philanthropy. Most of the philanthropy is happening at really high levels, which then that's actually putting a lot of burden on nonprofits. Because now if you have one individual giving you a lot of money, then actually it's kind of the perverse golden rule, because I have the gold, I make the rules. So we wanted to change that piece too. So there's a number of things that we were trying to do. Socializing and democratizing, we were kind of just going for the participation bit, but that's an interesting point.
Can I ask a quick follow-up?
Sure.
Are there projects like this happening in a lot of different communities and cities right now, or is this unique, and how do you see over the landscape and the future of these experiments?
Yeah, that was actually a great question. One of the ones my board said is, how do you get this to scale? Because it's very labor intensive. Having two staff that support the giving project participants, both identifying, training them, doing a lot of coaching with them. So one of the things that we've been doing, so this innovation came from the Social Justice Fund Northwest in Seattle. And now we got a learning cohort of 5 different foundations across the country: Philadelphia, Denver, Chicago, Minneapolis, and then we're adding a few others. So it's actually a model that we're looking to take to other places, and we've created some toolkits so that communities on their own can start it, and we're just kind of thinking about what that might look like for people to do it themselves. So it's an interesting piece, and we're thinking of the best way to support it, going forward.
Yes.
As someone who has spent years trying to raise money to hire community organizers with traditional solutions, the challenge is always the measurable outcomes and who gets to say what those should be. Can you talk about how you approach the issue of deliverables and expectations?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Raising money for community organizing is the hardest. Partly because people don't understand it, partly because it's been romanticized or politicized in the 70s. I mean, basically what I tell people community organizing is, it's this crazy concept, right? You bring people together, you learn together, and then you act together. It's something we do all the time. But our foundation gives general operating grants. So as far as deliverables, what we're really looking for are alignment with our core values. So are you working on issues that are working on the root causes of a big injustice in society? So, a lot of the work that we support, $15 an hour, and multiple campaigns that are going on. Social, racial, economic, and environmental justice is really big right now. So we're not all that interested. I'm not all that interested in the actual deliverables, though we've worked with organizations to better understand what are the metrics that matter to them. The metrics that matter to organizers are mobilization. How many people did you get to come together that really care about this issue? How many leaders did you develop out of it? Because this is the leadership development model. Organizing is really all about the way that it's kind of like that old commercial, you tell two friends and they tell two friends. I can't remember what the product was, Clarion Hair or something. It's really a leadership. So really looking at what the metrics are that organizers use and using that as our way of helping them to identify what success is. Yeah.
David, are you noticing that your all's learning is influencing the conversation in traditional philanthropy around how the outcomes measurements and application process kind of perpetuates the culture of shame that kind of comes around who gets the money?
That's a great question. So I became the executive director a couple years ago, 3 years ago in December, actually. And my first retreat with my board, one of the conversations, we had this rallying sort of thing about like, let's address social inequities in society. And the question that really we honed in on is what are the social injustices that exist in our organization? So one of the things that we started with is start with ourselves first. One of the beliefs that we have, if you're going to bring out equity and justice, you can't actually start out there. You need to start with ourselves. That's part of the reason why we created and brought the Giving Project model to us, is because we see in this bifurcation where people of color were in the grant-making committees giving out money, and didn't that feel great? And then white people with wealth were the ones funding this. And so there was so there in and of itself was structural racism. So we actually had to name that and had to come grips with that. Part of what we were dealing with is philanthropy is by its nature that way. And so we have to try and dismantle that. And it was an angsty process where, people got mad, people got upset. People realized for the last 30 years they were doing something that was good but could be better. And that's hard. And so we've been taking that message. And again, part of this, what I'm really speaking about, is actually being vulnerable and speaking the truth to other foundations and saying, one, look at how you're funding, look at who you're funding, and look at why you're funding it. And are you part of the problem of just maintaining this, the problems in our society? Because the reality is a lot of the dollars do that. Or do we want to be courageous in this moment to say, how do we invest that actually supports innovation? These are just fancy words for, it hasn't worked, so let's try something different. Really take a look at our processes to realize, are we creating such a power imbalance that we make people come and beg at their knees? Or are we actually saying to ourselves, we don't actually know what we're doing? This is what's beautiful about this community like grant making. The reality is a peer review process. Community leaders can make as good a decision, better than I make. I rank all the grants. We have about 400 or so applications in the 6 grant rounds we do. I read all the grants and I make little notes about how I would fund them. And there's a couple things that happen. I'm kind of going off a little bit, but there's a couple things that happen. One is 8 out of 10 times we align completely. One group, usually in the group, I kind of go like, yeah, I don't think the committee knows what they're talking about. And through the process, I realized some humility of I could not understand the way they were communicating their work didn't make sense to me. So that was actually my own problem. And then the other one may or may not be a good investment, but I'll take 9 out of 10 any day. So.
Very good. Do we have time for one more? Any last question there? Super
I'm just curious, the model that you're talking about fits really well with social justice organizations. Do
Yeah.
you see, or the other foundations that are doing work like yours, an effort to try and work with entities that are doing kind of the more traditional funding, whether it's arts or children, education, those less kind of community organizing based, but that the community-led funding model, like how would that apply there to Canada?
That's a good question. This is what I tell my community foundation colleagues. What they all realize, what they won't say, is that this generational gap that we have is profound. So the wealth is actually leaving and dying out. What's really exciting about the Giving Project on multiple levels is that young people so there's a couple things. One, young people are really excited because it's a meaningful role. They actually get to do exactly what they want, which is roll up their sleeves and be engaged with thinking about and resourcing the solutions in their community. So on some level, this is just a regenerative model that actually community foundations could do with anything. It's actually just a shell of a model. You could put a lot of different things there. So for community foundations that are smart, most often though, the model in fundraising is to try and find the easiest thing, which is a few individuals. Everybody comes, where's this few rich people? The interesting thing is, when I looked at our foundation, I did an analysis of people that have given us $1 million over their time as donors, and their gifts started at $500, $1,000. You don't know who it is. It's the length of time giving. So hopefully there's community foundations out there that are thinking about, well, the reality is our donor base is old and going to be passing away. And yeah, we'd like to take all of their wealth before they go, but that ain't actually happening. This is a way that you can actually think about the future. So I hope so, but you never know. Foundation, so it's something else. I don't know. It's a thought.
Oh, thank you. That was really illuminating. I think if you guys have additional questions, we'll have opportunity to talk after.
Okay.
Thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you.
Very good.